Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you for accepting the invitation. My name is Nishant. I'm happy to have you here, ma'am. First question. From your experience of leading the CAMS IITM Madras, can you share, you have shared about the current technologies which is going to become change the fintech in future, like embedded finance, digital currencies and all. Can you tell me what are the current fintech innovations that after 5 years will change the world? Like example UPI. What are the emerging technologies like that now?
So now we have lot of payment gateways. Up in UPI itself, several things are there. But I think, of course, now it is being offered free. We expect that going to be made with some merchant payment will come in also. But mainly because we want to bring in financial inclusion, this has been done. And we expect that a lot of new products will also come in. It's not going to be, it's only a beginning. New other digital payment systems will come and make things much more simpler and easier. And not necessarily you have to use a UPI, but you can also make payment through whatever channels that you're making use of. I think that's what's going to emerge in another 4 to 5 years.
Okay, thank you. It's okay. I want to ask this question about balancing between financial inclusion and regulatory standards.
Financial inclusion, see, UPI has actually enabled us to bring in more inclusion because we have brought in a lot of the unbanked population into the UPI segment now. I mean, the fruit sellers, even flower sellers, coconut sellers, all these people have
Local
now brought
vendors.
into it. Like local vendors have all brought into it. And the amount of revenue that they are generating is also being known. It was totally unknown earlier.
Now it's
It's
coming into
become
more and more
into
accounts.
things. So that way, indirectly, we were brought in financial inclusion. So I think it's really good that we are going for more of this digital payments and everything. It is time because people become more educated, more knowledgeable now. They also know now where money is coming, how much money is there, how to keep track of it, which they were not aware of earlier.
Initially they were not much into the money.
So in that sense, his inclusion has actually increased.
What is your outlook on RBI's central bank digital currency and how it is going to compete with these cryptocurrencies and other innovations now, like NIFT and all?
See, our NIFT is only for transaction payment.
Not NFT, ma'am.
NFT, okay, fundable tokens, yes. CBDC is a very good innovative product, but I think still we have to see where it is going to be used. Though right now about 14 banks have already said that you can buy. It's something like a wallet.
Yes.
And as such, what happens is it's not being, people are not using it extensively, and those who are accepting is also limited. The merchants and vendors who are accepting it. So we have to create more use cases.
Okay.
Then maybe we have to do it. I think RBI is also trying to look at in terms of bringing this slowly because it's something totally new. They don't want to go in a big way as far as CBDC is concerned, but at the same time they want to take caution and ensure that it will actually enable the. Because the first thing, even when I was saying I would like to compare why I go for UPI, why should I go for CBDC?
Indeed.
But then in the case of, there are different things. In the case of UPI, every transaction is going to be accounted for you. But whereas this is a wallet, so as such it's not going. So there are a lot of advantages which will be there when you're using a wallet also. So we need to highlight those things and bring out how it is going to be useful.
We have to increase
get more awareness also.
So recently NEP 2020 talked about interdisciplinary learning. What is your take on the interdisciplinary learning in management studies?
I think it's very much required. Management is not study by itself. No. We have to integrate with other domains also here. For example, where you may work in an automobile company, or you may work in maybe in a textile firm, etc. But it's also good to know in terms of those technologies and relation to management also. A lot of interdisciplinary, not interdisciplinary within the functional areas of management, but also with other domains, whether it's science or engineering.
Maybe.
So for example, we launched a course on quantitative finance. So where we bring in finance people, we teach finance. But quantitative finance is different. So we have people from Maths department, we have people from computer science department, and all together they don't know finance, but we don't know much of Maths or the computer science part. So as a team, we are able to understand things much better also here again. So this type of interdisciplinary thing is emerging.
It will be nice to
it's even now not only in terms of finance, even in other domains. We also looked at in terms of maritime logistics and supply chain management. So along with ocean engineering people, they are familiar with the maritime sector and the industry requirements, managing ships. investing in ships. So now, yesterday I was just taking a class on how to evaluate whether to buy a ship and lease it or not.
Okay.
Using AI, NPV and IRR and other thing. So it's actually a different thing, but there are the requirements of that particular sector for ship and it's all the leases, life is going for 25 years and the issues are different. So that way that interdisciplinary learning is it will be more relevant and practical.
Yes, ma'am. It's more
So
about
that's in rather than just knowing only about the basics and the fundamentals. I think if you apply it to the and
We are
relate to
going
the
beyond
domain,
theory.
yeah, it makes more sense.
We are talking about interdisciplinary education. So in education, faculties play a major part. Faculties for the past 5 decades are more and more into a traditional type of teaching, like lecture based. But after post COVID-19, education system itself just developed itself. There was online companies, edutech companies and all. Like we can learn anything from phone itself. So how do faculties adapt themselves to this trend?
I think it's a big challenge for faculty also. Now, because before we go to class, students can always search and find out many things. But so we have to make the classes more interesting and also try to see what they can always look into it, let them look into it, and then try to bring in more interaction, more case studies, live scenarios. So that in the process, the classroom students will be useful and more interesting also. And we also have to learn how to use AI.
Okay.
We cannot ignore it.
Thing.
For example, in a case study, I tell them now when I give a case study in a class, students will read the class. And if you put it in the chatbot, it's going to give you a solution here. So I used to ask them, if it is asked, I say, okay, you question those questions and then say which will be better.
Okay.
So that way you have to try to integrate that also into the way in which you're teaching. But it requires a little bit of training and
adaptation.
You have to do some planning also. Preparation and planning.
So there will be regular faculty development programs.
Faculty development, yeah. Now we have to look at that.
Okay. Talking about development, what are your take on Viksit Bharat 2047? Is India going in the right path? And what are the changes you suggest so that India can achieve its goal?
See, with respect to Viksit Bharat, actually I was doing a study for Tamil Nadu. And I don't know if you know that we are number 2 state.
Yes, in terms of
GDP. In GDP and in everything. And a lot of developments are happening. So actually we are going in the right direction also. So which means that irrespective of the political things that are happening, the economy, the industry and is all developing and growing. So if we keep doing this, I'm sure that we'll be able to achieve that also. And it's also good in the long run. Only thing is people are not conscious or aware of it.
Okay.
We need to be aware. We are doing well. We should be proud of what we are. And then try to see how do we part of it and how to integrate into it and then start contributing to it.
Individual outcomes to national outcomes.
So apart from studying what is there and knowing all the concepts and the fundamentals, I think we also relate to the practice there. Then in that case, the moment you start doing it, I think you will also start contributing more also. And Viksit Bharat will definitely happen.
Indeed, ma'am. So it's the last personal questions. So scholars like us are still starting our journey. So what qualities or what do we have to develop to become someone or to become like someone of your stature?
See, I also started like you only. So the most important thing is, I think whatever you do, you try to look at in terms of developing your knowledge. One is first is be strong in the subject. Develop your skills pertaining to research.
Okay,
and then choose the right research problem and then start working on it in more in depth and then try to find a solution. Because whatever you do at this stage, it's what going to become you later.
Okay.
So I always say that the scholar will get a PhD, but for me, I want to see how the scholar is going to be as a person later.
Okay.
Because it's going to define how he is going to be in the future also. So it's something like a journey that they undertake, and then you develop, and strong foundation is required. Now, don't be in a hurry. Spend time to strengthen your knowledge and foundations, concepts. Learn everything by yourself. And then the process, because if you don't learn when you're doing your PhD, you'll never learn later.
Yes.
That's what I found. All my students also, if they stopped at one stage, even after going as a teacher, they didn't go beyond it. So it's important that you learn everything.
Learn every day, update
yourself. So then that will determine your future also. So don't think it's going to be difficult. Everything is difficult initially. Even when I did research, I didn't understand what tools to use. In statistics, I would have scored 100 marks. But then to my research, if I have to apply, I didn't know which one to apply, why to apply, what to do, how to interpret, etc. So then I started learning and applying it. So in the process, then I realized that unless you apply to practice, you will not learn also. So I think that to be always have an open mind and keep exploring. So and then if it doesn't come, it is okay. Try to see okay how what you can do better also. So I think then if you have that attitude, I think you can keep on moving forward also.
This is the last question. Tell any 3 qualities everyone in irrespective of their profession they have to succeed in their life. This is the last.
In any profession, I think the most important thing is understand what is expected of you,
Understanding.
and then try to work out, see, plan, and then execute also.
Planning.
Yeah, a little bit of planning is also required, yeah? And then always review yourself. See, self-evaluation is very important. Every now and then see where you are, what you're doing is correct. And then if you do it properly more frequently, you can develop yourself and prepare yourself much better. And then many things, see, fintech, I didn't know anything. Yeah, I didn't know ABC of fintech, but now I'm talking about it. But still, I have to learn a lot more. So that's how we have to have an open mind and keep on. I know these are new things emerging. I need to develop my capabilities, start looking in terms of it, read. Initially, everything is Greek and Latin, but fine. Then after some time, it becomes a little more familiar. Then afterwards, no. So that's what I always say, that all things are difficult before it is easy.
Okay.
So if you remember that, I'm sure that you can always succeed and achieve.
Just last question from my side. Like I have experience on myself because in like certain age, like if somebody's 5 years elder than me, they know a lot, right? So right now, like except IITs and IIMs, there's a huge like rigid in the portions. You said regarding the stats. But teachers don't teach you how to practically use it in India specifically. Because of the rigid portions, so how can students actually explore more? Like, where can we get more and more knowledge about these things? Because if we take abroad, and we compare here, it is a huge gap. So what do you think about that?
See, even abroad, the students do all the work. Teacher doesn't do much work there. Students have to put in a lot of effort here. But here, when I look at, I think in terms of two things, I'll answer it in 2 ways. One is, see, along with age, up to a certain age, knowledge will happen. Knowledge will also increase. If you put it like a flow chart or a curve, age on one side and knowledge on the other, horizontal. With increase in age, your knowledge will go on increasing. But at one stage, what happens is, if you don't do anything, it will come down. If you want to maintain, you have to put little effort. And if you want to do something more, you have to take little more extra effort. So if you can see some people after age, if they are not doing, which means that they are going in the down curve. There are some at least who maintain it. There are some, those who try, you have to put some extra effort here. Because automatically it doesn't happen, which means that it all depends on the effort that you put in. So if you don't have the information, look in for sources where you will get in as a student also. Sometimes everything is not available in the classroom. No? So we may also look at in terms of other ways by which you can learn. Or what are the sources? Of course, a lot of digital information is also available. Case studies are also there. Learning materials also there. So if you and books are also, I think people ignore books. They think everything they want automatically. Books are there. Take one book for each course and read them A to Z. Don't look at notes. Take a textbook, proper textbook. Take Indian author's book also. You read it from first page to last page once for every chapter. And then go to class, no? The way you will understand will also different. You can, next time anything you see in the paper, and most important thing is read one newspaper. Being management students or economic students, you should read at least Business Standard or Financial Times or at least the business column of the regular newspaper, or Economic Times or the business columns. But initially, don't look only, first you look only headlines and you don't read it all. But then make it a point you read continuously. After some time, you will find that unknowingly your exposure and your outlook will change if you have started reading it. Daily, make it a point. 15 minutes, I must do this reading. Another thing is, apart from this, I also read some of these magazines also. No? Sometimes these books talks about companies or what they are doing, these reports that are there. So I think they also give you a lot of understanding what things are happening outside. So either Business World or Mrs. India, take any one, whichever you like. And then you keep following it, no? It's because when you're, even after the course, you will be working in an organization, you can continue that. So it helps you to keep growing. Because I see students also, no, after some time, they say, no time, ma'am, we are busy at work, and then they don't update. But it's important for you to spend time to keep yourself updated, spend some time for yourself. 15 minutes a day minimum. I must do something new and something which I like. Not everything I cannot be a master, but I have to be a master at least in 1 or 2 areas which I like. And that will be a good thing.
Thank you so much.